Broadcasting from the Subaru of Gwinnett Studio at the Gas South Convention Center in Duluth, Georgia, it's time to design your life on Status Life with Lita. Status Life with Lita is presented by Derek Hayes Law at 404-777-HURT and by 5 Strands Affordable Testing. Invest in your health at 5strands.com.
We are here today, and this is different for me. I do not have my amazing co-host, my husband, my partner, Mr. Derek Hayes. He is not with us for the second time in the show's history. We have been on air for 5 seasons now, and Mr. Hayes had to be in court today. And with a series of events, I'm actually not in studio today for also the second time in the show's history. The first time was back in 2020 when I had COVID, and that was a real interesting show because I couldn't stop coughing and I was holding a phone up to my mouth just to try to talk, and I was in bed. But we decided to roll with that show because I had COVID, and I was one of the very first people that I knew, that really anyone knew, to get it. You know, we were seeing everything on the news, and it was only about 2 days into the shutdown, and I was thinking, who's going to be the first person? Well, at the time, I was running a very large retail store, and I was handling money and handling clients, and I'm sure that I passed some germs somewhere and got COVID. Lucky me. But anyway, so for the second time, unfortunately, I had a little car trouble this morning, which is life, and it happens. But I have 2 fantastic guests, and they are patching in today from Colorado. And I thought, you know what? They're zooming into the show, and I'm going to zoom in as well. So producer Mike is handling all the technicals, and we are going to jump right into it. Let me introduce my guest to you. I have, who has been on the show before, my very dear friend, Mr. Chris Sullivan. Chris, say hello and welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. Super excited to be here, Lita. It's always great to see you and talk with you.
Welcome back. I shouldn't say welcome, but I am going to give a first welcome to another very dear friend of mine. We were on the 1 kidney climb, 3 kidney. Okay, say it. I'm saying it correctly. I'm 1 kidney, the 3 volcano challenge in Guatemala. And Mr. Brian Teal, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a year about, right? Since we were climbing those volcanoes. Yeah. That was a year ago. That was wild.
We were in full prep mode to get ready, packing, getting ready for our flights. Now, Brian, you were the only person on that climb, except for Luisa and our guides that live in Guatemala and got us up those volcanoes. You were the only team member with 2 kidneys.
I know. I had to drag another kidney up those volcanoes. You guys didn't help me at all. I had all that extra
you had to
baggage.
drive all that camera equipment.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. All right, talk about what your role was on that trip.
So I am a longtime friend, 20-year friend of Mr. Chris Sullivan. We live just down the street, and he asked me to go along on that trip to document and create a documentary on that 3 volcano challenge for the 1 kidney climb. And I am a director of photography. I own my own production company. And that is why I was dragging all those cameras and mics and trying to talk to people and learn their stories and learn all about why they did what they did and what it meant to them and how it gave them a sense of purpose in life. And it was profound what I learned over the course of that week.
I bet it was profound for myself, being a climber, just flying to Guatemala all by myself, meeting with the other KDAs once I got there, and truly taking what was an adventure of a lifetime. It was a pleasure meeting you. I know we did some one-on-one work with the interviews, but I can't say enough, Brian. I joked about you lugging that camera gear, but let me just paint a picture for the audience listening of what this actually looked like. So we did 3 separate volcanoes, multiple days. One of the volcanoes, we camped on the side of it, Acatenango. Again, amazing experience. But this was incredibly challenging climbing. And what I didn't realize, when you do the kind of work Brian does, to capture the shot, you have to go ahead of everyone. So Brian, carrying more gear than everyone else and carrying a camera where we're all using trekking poles, Brian has to go faster than the team to be able to get in position to get the shot while the team goes by. And then we all go by and he gets that shot. Then he has to run up ahead again, and he has to continuously pass us on these volcanoes. And where we are exhausted as climbers, 1 kidney or 2 kidney, it's the same amount of leg work. And yet Brian is almost doing double time on that work. So kudos to you, Brian. I just remember when we came down off Atitlan, which was our 3rd volcano. It was the most challenging climbing I've ever done up to that point. I mean, you were just a trooper. You got up there with the first team and got those shots, and what an incredible documentary. I will link the documentary that you did about our Guatemala climb. But anyway, that's how we met. That's, kind of where this friendship was formed, but something else was formed on that climb. And I really, even being a part of that team, I didn't realize what you two were coming up with, for lack of a better term. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. The next step, next one. Chris or Brian, I'm just going to let you start with how this idea was born and then lead into what it is.
Yeah, so I'll start. And, thanks again for having us. As you mentioned, the middle climb, so Acatenango, that was an overnight. And if you remember, we got socked in. The weather was not great. We got up there and we were in the clouds, couldn't see more than about 15 or 20 feet. And we all were awakened at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's when we were supposed to start trekking to the summit. And our guide said, there's nothing to see. We're in the clouds, go back to bed. So Brian and I, we were sharing one of those bunks. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, he starts asking me questions. Why do people donate? What drives people to donate? Why would you do this? What is the driver? What does the rest of the world think of it? And he just starts peppering me with questions at 3 o'clock in the morning, which turned into about an hour and a half, almost 2 hour, just deep conversation on the side of this volcano in the fog in the middle of the night in Guatemala. We got up the next morning, the clouds broke. We had a great hike to the top, beautiful summit, got to see Fuego volcano erupting. And I just kind of put that out of my mind. Then the next day, Brian comes up to me. He goes, I got it. I said, you have what? I said, I've got the idea. Take the next step, be the next one. And that's just the way Brian's mind works. I've known him for 20 some years. As he mentioned, we've been friends. He is creative beyond belief. And that's not my area of expertise. That's not my superpower. That is his. And he said it the first time. And I think I truly remember it. The hair on the back of my neck went on end. I mean, when you think about it, take the next step, because here we are climbing volcanoes. And if you're going to donate a kidney, you take that step, and then be the next one, because it's really one at a time, and how one person can impact so many. So take that next step, be the next one to donate, to make a difference, save a life. And from there, from that trip, from that 2 a.m. conversation, and the next day on the side of or 2 days later climbing, it took shape. And he and I would be texting and on the phone every couple of days, and he'd be bouncing ideas off of me. And this thing went through 3 or 4 iterations before it finally really settled in. So this was early December of 23. We are now in 2024. And in a period of about 6 months, it grew from a concept to reality, to hiring a public health consultant, to shooting videos, and Brian's going to talk more about this, to coming to life in a website and launching, raising $200,000 to fund the campaign. And here we are. We're 2 months in, and next step, next one, NSNO, as we like to refer to, is live. And, that's basically the story. So there you go. That's kind of how it was born and where we are today.
I have chills. I'm smiling from ear to ear. I feel it. I'm passionate about this. I was on that climb. I remember that 3 a.m. wake up call. Of course, we're all expecting to get our gear. What I remember about that, because the moment I was in, my bunkmate was very sick that night. She was suffering from altitude sickness. And, I was very worried about her. I didn't know if she could summit. I didn't know if I should find someone. I didn't know where anybody was. It was just it's interesting that's my experience. I'm dealing with someone who's very, very sick up here on top of this volcano, and I'm trying to find someone for help. And you guys are birthing this amazing next step, next one. Brian, I'm going to take it to you. I know that there are 4 main pillars of this campaign. I want you to dig in and explain what those are.
So the 4 main pillars that we identified when we partnered with a public health consultant, she really dug into a tried and true public health campaign strategy, and that was identifying the motivators and the barriers. So what were the barriers for people that inhibited someone taking action, and what were the motivators for taking action? And at the end of the day, if you're a non-directed donor, which means that you're donating your kidney to a stranger, which is what Chris did, is because you saw a story, and that story motivated you to take action. And so once we identified the motivators and the barriers to taking action, the 4 main pillars of the campaign, the 4 types of stories that we produce on the campaign are stories from those who gave, like Lita and Chris, those who've received, and those are the people in need. The people who are currently in need, who sit on the transplant list, for your audience, there are nearly 100,000 people who are sitting on the transplant wait list. They're literally just waiting. And unfortunately, and very sadly, today, 13 people will die today waiting. And the last pillar are the legislative efforts to increase the motivators and reduce the barriers for people to go ahead and donate. So the 4 main pillars of the campaign: those who gave, those who've received, those in need, and the legislative efforts to really encourage and try to motivate people to help someone out there in the world.
Now, Chris, I know that you had what we're going to call a lightning strike moment, because your donation was non-directed. The show, I'm just going to, little sidebar here, the show that Chris was on, we heard his donation story. It was all, about the climb right after, we came down from Guatemala. I encourage you to go back and listen to that show. It was absolutely fantastic if you, want to dig into this even deeper. Chris, back to the lightning strike. Everything gets planted with a story, just like Brian just said, but that's exactly how it was planted for you. Mine was different, right? My intention, my pillar would have been my family, my father. So that was my donor, but that's not necessarily the case for everyone. I want you to talk about what those lightning strike moments mean.
Yeah. So every donor has a story. I'm non-directed, meaning that I gave not directed to someone. I did not have somebody in mind. So mine was a Saturday evening in my kitchen. The TV was on in the background, and I just happened to catch the last 20 seconds of a piece about living kidney donation. So understanding that I had never thought about donation, didn't know anything about it, had never crossed my mind, this literally stopped me in my tracks. I was entranced. I listened. I stopped for a second, took a deep breath, looked over my shoulder at my wife, Vicky, and I said, I'm doing that. It was that transformational. And I literally stopped what I was doing, went on my computer, and began the process of filling out the questionnaire at the transplant center here in Denver, where I am. And that's that lightning bolt moment. I've had people tell me, that's God tapping you on the shoulder, whispering in your ear. And however you look at it, that always stuck with me, just from a very spiritual standpoint, that I think there's some meaning to that. There are a lot of people out there. There's 270 to 300 million people in this country. And not everybody is going to be set up for wanting to do this. And that's fine. But out of that 300 million, there's at least 100,000. And that's where next step, next one, that's what we're looking is. Brian is producing a piece a day to basically be that lightning strike moment for that next group. And that's why the connection piece is so important, that anybody who hears this, please check it out. And all we're asking you is follow on your Instagram, Facebook, whatever that is, and just share it out to your network. We need those connections, because you don't know if it's you, your friend, your neighbor, relative, that is going to be their lightning strike moment. in that it's not only going to save a life, it will enrich their life as a donor.
Brian, a piece of content a day? Wow. I mean, all of this is just incredible, from everything Chris just said, all the stats, the lightning strike moments, to everything that you're putting behind this mission. It's just incredible. I'm watching it. I'm loving it every single day. Of course, I'm invested in it. I'm in some of the content. We've had time to work together. Where are you getting these stories? Give us a little background on, the production behind this. Where are you finding all these donors?
They are connections made. There are a lot of groups like KDA out there in the world. I was just in Portland last week with a small group called Northwest Kidney Kids. Now, these are all kids who have either gotten a transplant or will soon be on the list, or who are on the list, either born with one kidney, or they're kids that this group has rallied behind. They put on a camp every summer for these kids where they can have their dialysis treatment, but yet still go to camp and be kids. Those were some pretty tough interviews to do. I mean, they're very vulnerable people. And for a child, and for your audience to understand, there were two parents that were part of that group who had given a kidney to their child, but their child will outlive those kidneys. And so their passion is trying to let the rest of the world know that someone else is going to have to come in clutch for their child 20 years from now, because they don't have another one to give. And that's the connections that made such a profound impact on me, is that we have the treatment for this particular, for kidney donation, doesn't exist in the medical field. The medical field is the dialysis machine that keeps them going until someone raises their hand and says, I will help. And for these particular parents, they are just leading with the world to understand that. So we are starting at step 0 with this campaign to let the world know that A, you have 2 kidneys, B, you could help a complete stranger and literally save their life. And when you talk to donors, very few are like Chris Sullivan, who have that moment and literally go and donate, right? The founder of Kidney Donor Athletes, Tracy, heard about this, I believe, in middle school and donated 15 years later. But what we're trying to do is plant these seeds, because they will have a moment. They will either be touched by it, or they will just have that lightning strike moment. And that's what we're trying to let people know, this problem exists and that they could be the solution.
Incredible. I've shared this story with Chris, and I'll share it here. A very dear friend of mine, her mother needed a kidney, and this is the other side of the story, right? You're a recipient, and you don't want it to be one of your children. My father, of course, did not want it to be me until he was told that it needed to be a living donor, that because of his age and his medical condition, a cadaver kidney, a donor kidney, would not be coming to him. And that's a very real thing too. Living donation is the best, and I believe our doctors told us, healthiest way to do a transplant. And so I was a match. I was more than willing. I had my personal lightning strike moment, not with my father. I had a nephew that was born who needed a liver, and I was ready to step up to the plate and donate half of my liver to this little baby. And unfortunately for someone else, fortunately for my nephew, a cadaver liver was available. So I didn't have to donate, but it had always been in there. I think that's a God thing. I don't know. He just puts that on your heart. That's going to be part of my story. And then, of course, 20 plus years later, my father needed one. Back to my friend, her mother needed a kidney. She was a match. Her sister was a match, and her mother refused to let them donate. She was going to wait on the transplant list, and unfortunately passed away waiting. And so my friend, is huge support of Kidney Donor Athletes, of take the next step, be the next one, because had her mother not been stubborn, had her mother understood that living donation can be, I don't want to say easy, because everybody's recovery is different, but it can be, relatively simple. with some time and some care on your body for the donor, she might still be alive. She just, out of fear. We talk a lot about that, fear stopping you from doing this. And, my mission is to shout from volcanoes, from rooftops, you don't have to be afraid. And I think that's ultimately, what's behind this mission, is to share that knowledge. With that being said, I want to take a quick break. I want to recognize the sponsors that help produce this amazing content. I have to say my most favorite sponsor is Derek Hayes Law, our law firm. But my other favorite sponsor is 5 Strands Affordable Testing. I use them. I love them. I've tested everyone in my family. This is food intolerance testing, and you get a 17-page report back that tells you every single thing that you are food intolerant to. They test vitamins, they test minerals, they can test alcohol, everything under the sun. It's absolutely amazing. Status Life with Lita is sponsored by 5 Strands Affordable Testing. Gain personalized insights on how your body interacts with your diet and lifestyle patterns. All they need is 5 strands of hair, and you'll receive personalized results to help you reach your health and wellness goals. Visit 5 Strands, that's the number 5, 5strands.com to learn more. If you'd like to purchase, use the code LETA, L-E-T-A, 10, the number 10. LETA 10 to receive 10% off your 5 Strands kit.
Tired of experiencing bloating, eczema, diarrhea, or weight problems? Get to the root cause of your dietary discomforts with 5 Strands Affordable Testing. No need to schedule time off work. Just collect and send in 5 strands of your hair to see how intolerant your body is responding to over 600 common food items. Intolerance reactions are not life-threatening like allergies, but are responsible for most daily discomforts. Achieve your dietary and lifestyle goals by visiting 5strands.com and ordering your at-home collection kit today.
Hello, everyone. As a listener of the Status Life with Lita podcast, you already know I'm attorney Derek Hayes. I've been practicing law in the state of Georgia now for over 26 years. My firm specializes in cases involving personal injury, catastrophic injury, nursing home abuse, and any other situation where someone was injured by the negligence of others. As I've said before, if insurance companies ever resolve claims the way they should, I'd be out of a job. But I'm not worried about that happening. Did you know insurance adjusters are trained to pay you as little as possible to protect their company's bottom line? They say they're genuinely concerned about you, but really the goal is to settle the claim with you for far less money than you deserve. My job is to make sure they pay the full value of your claim and nothing less. You can speak directly with me by calling my office at 404-777-HURT. Visit my website at derekmhayes.com. or check out my social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to catch my podcast, Injury Insider with Derek Hayes, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast. I look forward to speaking with you.
All right, we are back with my guests, Mr. Chris Sullivan and Mr. Brian Teal. We are digging into Take the Next Step, Be the Next One, Real People, Real Stories, and the mission behind this initiative. Chris, we've talked about where this was born. We've talked about the passion behind it, the real stories, the lightning strikes. This is all about the power of human kindness and life-changing connections. But we say nothing about coming for your kidney. Was that intentional? Tell us what that means and why.
Yes, absolutely. Want to make sure everybody understands that this is not about, pinpointing individuals and out to get your kidney. This is about awareness, connections. Like I said earlier, trying to find those people out there who don't even know that they have that desire. Just like me, I didn't know. And then I saw that piece and was like, wow, I need to do this. This is my calling. And it was truly one of the best things I ever did in my life, short of getting married and having kids. This is life-changing for the positive in such, a big way. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for awareness. And that's why we need all of your listeners to just share it. Use their social media networks and share it. This isn't about, looking for you to be a donor. Hey, if you want to donate, that's great. And that's part of this. Take action, look into it, find out more. But this is about sharing out there within their network to find those people who, wow, I didn't even think about this, but man, I am called to do this. I need to donate my kidney.
So, Brian, we touched on what I think is very awe-inspiring. You are producing content every single day. And the content is not just blanket content. These are the stories. These are talking to recipients and donors and their families and pushing these stories out there in a big, big way. What is the platform? Where can people go to find these stories, to share, and to get involved?
What we are trying to do, and when you follow the campaign, I'm just going to drop a really nice story about two human beings. Sometimes they knew each other and sometimes they're complete strangers. And the stories just kind of come into your feed in the morning, and maybe it starts your day off right, because they are amazing stories. And the threads that run through them is really this amazing connection that happens when you reach out and you put yourself in a vulnerable position to ask, first of all, and then that life-changing connection that happens when someone, sometimes a complete stranger, who says, I want to help you. I recently visited with two young women in Columbus, Ohio. They were sorority sisters, and the eventual donor, she had a hard time finding any information out. She ended up reading a bunch of Reddit threads to understand, what's this going to be like? If I'm a donor, what's my recovery? Where can I go to understand all this? And when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you're in end stage renal failure, we got to get you on dialysis like now. I mean, your head spins. You're like, what? What am I in for? And so this is a very kind of passive but very engaging way to kind of learn what this journey is like. Think about it as an Amazon review for kidney donors and recipients from real people who've experienced it, right? If you've gone to Amazon and I want to buy this product, what's your experience with it? These are real people. These are real stories. These are people who have gone through it. And for people like Lita and Chris, who say, I don't want to say it was a nothing burger, but it really was not that big a deal. But it was a huge deal for the person on the other end of that. And that's what we're trying to tell people, is this is very attainable for a large selection of people. And even, as Chris said, even if you can't donate, to just spread the word, because there is somebody out there who is going to have that lightning strike moment when they know about it. So this is available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They're just simply stories that we want to put in your feed and maybe start your day off on the right foot. And for many, many people out there, they will have that lightning strike moment. And it's such a beautiful educational resource for those who are going through the process, either donating or receiving.
So give the exact handle. So it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, and I'm sure there's a website attached to this. I know the slogan, but give exactly where they're going to go to find this.
If you search on Facebook or Instagram, Next Step, Next One, not the full Take the Next Step, Be the Next One, but simply Next Step, Next One. The website is nextstepnextone.com.
You said something, and I heard it from, I believe she is a donor, and she's in one of the videos. She's wearing the turquoise KDA shirt. And every time I hear it, as I follow this and she comes up, she says, I may not have changed the world, but I changed her world. I don't know who her recipient was, but every time I hear it, that just sits with my heart, because so many people trying to find their purpose. Oh, I want to change the world. I want to get behind this. I want to get behind that. But she changed someone's world. And at the core of it, that's all that matters. Right. And it just spreads. I love it. I love how she said it, because it puts all of this so perfectly into one sentence. So this launched Next Step, Next One 45 days ago. Is that correct? Was that the launch date of the campaign?
Yep, around the 1st of October. And I think I'm up to about 73 donors, recipients that I've talked to. And there are a lot of universal threads that go through all of those stories, whether you are in need or whether you have chosen to give. The heart of this is universal, in that when Lisa says it changed her world, it saved her life. And I have sound bites from people that ring through my head all night long. And in November, we led up to a young man. His name is Francisco, who we dropped stories about two non-directed donors, Chris and a woman in Indianapolis, Christina, and we talked about being a non-directed donor and what it meant to those donors. And then we dropped a piece on Francisco, who is currently on the list, and he's the first person that we have put out there. And as of this morning, we're well over 34,000 views on his story. He's had 4 people go to his microsite, and a microsite is a place where when you are in need, you tell your story to the world in hopes that someone will come to your rescue. And 4 people have gone to that. So we're figuring these threads out. We're figuring out how to lay out the problem, and then who the white hats who come to the rescue. And we're trying to encourage more people to come to the rescue. The other universal thing that we have learned within this is when you are sitting in that very, very vulnerable position, the ask is hard. And as Lita pointed out, even as a parent, to ask of your child is hard. So you can imagine asking a stranger. And the universal thing that touches me the most is when someone doesn't come to your aid, you start to wonder in the depth of night, is my life really worth saving? Because when no one is coming to your rescue, it means that you weren't worth it. And what we're trying to show the world that every life matters and the ripple effect of that life. Lita's dad now has a relationship with his grandchildren because of Lita's gift to him. Chris's recipient is now retired, living in a beautiful place with his wife because he's still here and he didn't die waiting. So you're really telling someone your life matters, and I'm going to show you that it matters.
It never dawned on me, I guess because I'm stuck in the bubble of my story with my dad and, jumping to his rescue, how that would feel, what you just said, in the depths of the night, if your loved ones didn't step up or couldn't, or, you have friends and family and no one was going through the process to get tested for you. I can't even imagine what that would look like and what that would feel like. So, wow, it's very powerful. The whole concept, the whole mission, from where it started, it was powerful just being a kidney donor athlete. And that's just one little component. That's just how I even found out about this and met you guys, and how all this is just taking flight. So in 45 days, what have we learned? Tell us the growth of the campaign. Tell us where it's going. Will this continue on forever? Like, just give me kind of the overview of the vision of this and where it's going.
We watch and we listen and we learn every single day. And what we are trying to do is really engage with people and grow the following to be able to amplify this message. And in social media, it really is all about connections. It's networks connecting with other networks and growing this. So we know there is a very passionate group. I mean, they're passionate to the core about this particular issue because either their life has been saved or they have saved someone's life, or they are waiting on the list for someone to come to their rescue. And the overall plan is a 3-year plan. We monitor and we watch the pieces that are striking a chord with people, and we are doing more of what strikes a chord. We are trying to make sure that we're inclusive of all demographics, not just one, whether that's age, race, where they are in the country. We're trying to really start at step 0 and educate the public about this particular issue, but in a softer, gentler, inspiring way of telling these life-changing stories about real people. And as we study what we're doing, that's the beauty of social media, is that you can really dig down and look at the analytics on what we're doing. We monitor that and we kind of set up the next month's postings, collecting content, putting those pieces together, and really trying to broaden the connection. So that is partly why we are on this podcast, is to reach your listeners, to follow, to listen to these stories and to share those stories with others. And we've been contacted from people all across the country who want their story told. We've been contacted by people who've been personally touched by this, that just thank us for giving their place a voice. And, at the end of the day, people want their story told, and they want to be heard, and they want to matter. And what these recipients and what these people go through waiting is nothing short of heroic. And their heroes are out there. We just have to go find them.
Especially if they're on dialysis. I mean, that is a really, really difficult and challenging way of life. It's necessary. That dialysis machine is keeping them alive and filtering the blood and pulling fluids. And yet it's really, really difficult. I watched my dad go through it, and, countless other people just, being involved as I am a kidney donor athlete. I can't say enough about this mission and anything I can do, as a podcaster, as a blogger, to support. I would like to say, if you're listening to this and, you are interested, you've had your lightning strike moment, or you are moving forward in the process and you have an upcoming surgery, I have coached multiple, probably, 10, 15 at this point, potential donors who have questions. When I was preparing for my surgery, that was the best thing I did, was reach out, and they were complete strangers at the time and have now become friends, but they were donors, and they told me the information that your doctors don't tell you. And I don't mean secrets. Your doctors are not hiding anything from you. I'm saying things like, you're going to want to have a pillow always connected to your stomach while you sit up. The recovery things, sleep in a recliner. It's easier than getting in and out of a bed. Things that, again, once you get home, that you're going to need to know. When does your energy come back? How are you going to feel? The doctors are really just going to talk to you about the medical stuff. I'm saying this, I want to share my email address. I do it at the end of any show anyway, but if you're a potential donor, please use me as a resource. I will give you as much time as you need. I will answer any question you have. Status, STATUS, Life with Leta, LETA @gmail.com. Connect with me via email. We will get on the phone, and I am here to be a resource. I am passionate about this. I am passionate about helping and saving lives. And to Brian and Chris, I want, as this continues, as this campaign, and as we start to move the needle, there's over 100,000 people right now waiting on a kidney. The ultimate mission is to move the needle. It would be amazing if we got that down to 0. But I want to keep our listeners posted in 3 months, 6 months. How has this helped? How are we changing lives? I think it's important. And I think my listeners are behind this. A lot of my listeners, because we've done so many kidney donor shows throughout the years, starting in season 1, I had Amanda Hayhurst. She is a fellow kidney donor. She saw a little note that a woman's son had put in a karate studio with the phone numbers that, tear off, where it was in a child's handwriting, "Please save my mom who needed a kidney." And she had her lightning strike moment sitting in her son's karate class. She pulled that number and she was a match and donated her kidney. We did a full show on that. So my listeners are invested, and we want to hear how this goes and where you guys take it. We're in it with you. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for doing
Thank you.
this. Thank you for your hearts and your mission. And thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Always love being on the show, Leta. It's always great to see you. Have us back. We'll absolutely give you updates, and thanks for everything you do.
I look forward to it. Thanks again. Thanks to all my listeners. We appreciate it. I gave you my email address. You can also find Status Life with Leta on any podcast app. We are on all the channels. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I love 5 stars. The more that you support, the more content we can continue to keep pushing out. Instagram, Status Life with Leta, and also Facebook. I'm on all the channels, so you can find me. And please do, if you need me, I'm here as a resource.